In this restorative session, we're going to create pathways from the restorative shapes that I've sequenced to optimize the circulation and awareness through the body's spaces. The material that we cover in all these sessions is within my book, Awake and Calm, Sundog Pathways for Spatial Integration. And so that you can look into that simple restorative handbook for home practice. So let's start our home practice with our props set up. We have 2 blankets, a bolster, a couple blocks, a yoga belt, and optional sandbag. Optional mid-size, grippy massage ball. So these can be either a firm ball that you find, or one that has a little squish to it. You can kind of look around your home to see what you can come up with to compare to this. It's sometimes helpful to use something that has a little bit more rebound for the connective tissue. So let's begin with our back to the bolster. And you want to sit so that your base of your spine at your sacrum pelvis area is right against the bolster. You have your blanket set below and above the bolster. The one below I have is rolled up, so it gives a little bit more of a lift to my chest opener to start. And regarding the focus in the pathways, all the pathways are exploring the body's spaces. So the front space via chest opener, the back space via forward bends, the side space, side bends, and inner space via the twists and the inversions. So we kind of mixture of those spaces in our practice. So let's take your belt and you're going to buckle up or cinch the belt together so you have a wide loop that will go overhead and then forward to the tops of the feet where the soles of the feet are together. Slide the belt down so it's really at the base of your spine, right at the gluteal fold. And then as you start to tuck in your blocks underneath your legs so they're at the low height to start. And as you adjust your body back onto the bolster, like you to place your sand or your bag of rice across your ribs, so that selection of support is directly opening the chest. You get the feel where the arms can adjust down to broaden and stimulate the circulation of the lungs. Just self-scanning the support that's stable underneath you. And adjust the prop so that you feel a comfort in your back. So maybe you tip the blocks up to contour under your legs. Maybe you adjust the sand so it's turned from the heart to the belly. Use anything that's got some soft weight to it, whether it's a bag of rice, sand. You might even be able to find some other things at home that provide you this support of grounding and traction and centering for your breathing muscles and your core cylinder right in the front. Breathe in. Receive your breath, relax your arms completely. And breathing in the feeling that is already occurring inside your body. Start to let that expand gradually within the spaces through this practice today. Feeling how you fill up the chamber of the ribs. And as you empty and sweep the lungs, how the exhalation relaxes out of your mouth. Start to let that gesture of connection to breath be gentle. If you're utilizing that connection to your life force, your breath, assisting it to wave through the body as it's in waves of energy, encase your breath. Throughout this practice, come back to this pace of 3 counts in through the nostrils, belly full, 3 counts out through the mouth. Gradually, you're lengthening your exhale. Just check in through the practice in various poses where you may find you can exhale longer. Feel your arms moving open, hovering off the ground, starting to lift so they actually fly up. And there is some strength required, so when your arms reach back overhead, hold your elbows. Change the crossing, elbow crisscross. Interlace your fingers, stretch your arms straight back. At any time, resting your eyes to the practice to feel. We move slow enough that you will have the opportunity to close your eyes and sense the inner environment and the spaciousness that you can feature in any given moment here. Let your arms flow back down. Connect to your elbows touching ground. Slide your sand over to the side. And then as you unbuckle your belt, I want you to unlatch your belt and place your feet so they center on the floor, the feet a little wider than hip distance. Lift up the left leg, cross the left ankle over to the right knee. And then as you start to lean your right thigh down either to your block or to the ball, you'll feel that they have a little more resistance, possibly with the block than the ball. So they both have their benefits here. Poses with benefits. Okay. So we reach for the left knee with the right hand and we give it a little tug. Like awareness in hip, feeling where the sensation is through the ribs. Breathing, sensing the breath, moving through the body. Now we're anchoring the spine on the bolster and blanket. So when you start to release the grip on the knee, feel the body come back to neutral, uncross, cross the right ankle to the left knee and switch the side. If you're using a ball, you're going to place that adjacent to the left thigh and lean into it. Yeah, if you have some trigger point self-massage balls around that you're using here and there, you could just try them out. Just see in this practice. I like to use them for warming up my connective tissue before I actually approach and practice. So I can really juice around the joints, nourishing the spaces around them. They're kind of warmed up and opened up from that fascial stirring. So left hand holds the right knee and feel the least amount of resistance you can initially, and then provide a little more tug. And with each initial pulling, if you're trying to get it to the next level, Give yourself a moment of breath. If it's pretty solid for you, and you're anticipating twisting, see if you can stay with spine back, chest open. Relax your grip and keep it in motion. We're going to roll to the right hip, unlatch the right foot from the knee. Let the left leg start to swing its way back. You can place a block or a ball on the inside of the left leg, or neither, or a towel. And we'll move our blanket on the top of the bolster so that you have that length for your whole side channel, okay? So we're going to lean into the bolster. We're going to extend our right arm and lean into the arm. And then if you have the weight, you're going to bring that up to your external left side. So it could be that whole lateral rotator zone. I like to prioritize weight bearing from my hip. So I like to place it on my hip. Then I actually feel it in my base hip. If it's uncomfortable for you to have your right hip down on the floor, you can also put a towel or blanket under your hip. And you can go through the sequence, and then some of these things, if you watch it again, you can prep your practice space with more props that you might use. The right leg could stay hinged. It can also scissor kick, okay? Right hand could circle around the left wrist to give yourself that extra sensation through the side. You can bring your left arm behind your back. I prefer that angle. I'm bending my right knee. Keep in mind, back to breath, right? It's using that breath as an anchor for your attention. Intention to focus on breath. Feel where the waist is in an easy kind of compliant state of opening. Spatially giving yourself some movement variation if that feels inviting to your side. Now, as you start to bring the left hand to the sand, you're going to slide that away. Keep the body in contour. In fact, you might feel what is likable for your frame is to turn so that you're facing into a cat pose. So if I have my blanket here, I'll slide it back. Move back so I have a little bit more of view here. And placing my knees on the blanket and my hands on the shoulders on cat shape, hollow through the belly, feeling that core motioning in and up. Inhale, mobilize the vertebrae. So feel the arch in the spine. Feel what coils and uncoils, alternating cat. Experience the imprint of your hands and the tops of your feet, where you feel the feet touch. Try to keep it so it's very simple on all fours. If you crave moving back into a downward facing dog, this would be a good time for that. And if you want to stay with movement variety, stay with cat-cow. So opportunity here is arching, fingers wide, toes under, lifting your knees up and back to downward dog, opportunity. And those want to come back to child's pose. Knees are wide, toes are together. Reach your hands on your bolster and sink your forehead down. From your right down to your bolster. Let your back situate itself to feeling like it broadens. If you're in down dog, come down to a child's pose of choice. If the knees are not too filled with this position and pressure, you can also move your bolster forward so it's tipped up a little bit on the blanket and reach your hands down the bolster, so you're kind of bolster diving here, forehead down to the bolster. With the back space open and stand wide. Now, as you start to slide the bolster back, if it's across, I'm making a little bit of a space for diving into, huh? And then we'll take our side sage on the left hip. So let's say you have your blanket here. You could stay with this direction and start to reach in the side sage left hip down. You might like to have good symmetry here, some balance in your side, the message you're giving into your tissues. So if I'm keeping it very balanced, I'll move my ball into the inner side of the right leg and set my sand or rice on the right hip and reach through the left arm and lengthen. Yeah, give this a try. The side sage is supportive of this whole rib barrel, right? The expansion of the muscles between the ribs, the intercostals. So let the body lean into it, and how much air you get into the lungs is dependent on the movement of your ribs. So really feel how the waist breathes in the shape. Even if that right arm is behind you, the right arm is over, left hand to right wrist. Yeah, giving the body permission to really center down into the props. Feel the ribs expand and soar even within the skin, right? Feeling that this is a bit of a revelation for your center bone structure, moving away from its restrictions. And now stand the right arm open, and as you help yourself lean into the left, coming around to sitting up on the bolster. So I'm going to turn the bolster back to center, horizontal on my space. And I'll take the blanket off to the left side. Okay. Place your bolster in the center so that when you sit on top of it, you will have some access to an elevated pelvis and a block or a ball between the knees. So you decide which is the direction of in-breath will be. I'm going to slide my hands around the contour of the knees and simplify my message in my spine to sit upright. Inhale is upright. Exhale is rounding your back and feeling your chin move down as if you're trying to move it to the heart. So chin, heart, inhale, up, center. Feel just before you go to your deepest arch. Exhale, spine length. Inhale, spine length, right? Extension. Feel that you go up through the crown, helium head, contour back. Now as you move back into center, notice the energy of pushing into the prop between the knees. Okay? Stay with the energy and bring your arms forward and lean back. Center up the arms. Feel the center between the brain up, and then as you lean back, I want you to squeeze the block or the ball. Feel that you squeeze that as you come up. And then as you lower down, your hands will move the block to the side, right to the side of your bolster. You're going to want to have your bag of sand or rice on top of that block, and your other block is beside the bolster as well. Blanket behind you is unrolled, so it's as flat as could be, okay? And as you lean into the center of your bolster, be sure you're more forward on the bolster than you are right smack in the middle, so that when you dive back, the bolster is a elevatory experience for your pelvi, right? It's giving that elevation and actually placing the diaphragm, right, in a position where it's going to be easier for you to empty the exhalation, so it lengthens the exhalation. Okay, well, let's give a try for initial stages. Our legs have a tiny bit of separation, small, okay? Working on the inventory of where you're dominant with the position of the legs. If it's trying to swing back or drop forward, I want you to try to find right in the center so you're inverting, verticality, in verticality. Okay, we'll take a stand option. Okay, so door one starts with hands, push the sand up, okay, for the rice, bend your knees. You're gonna bring the sand to the bottom of your feet and see if you can spend some moments to settle the sand. Now, if this is a tough one for you, whatever sack or weight you're using, to get that balance on each side, and your knees are comfortable with this, you can place the sand on your shins, sandbag shin, and that you can kind of pat it out and even it out, then bring it up to your feet. Yeah, kind of tossing the sand up with your feet is a little tricky. So when I push up, I'm trying to get my back of my legs, not really just my glutes, but my hamstrings to contract and push up. Right, so that's interesting, right, to feel that back layer. Now it's lengthening, the feet are flexing, and the arms flow open. Adjust your shoulders back and down. Feel broadening through the ribs, they spread and fan out, and the dominant sensation might be landing at your hips, your tailbone, and then it flows mysteriously to the pool of the throat. So if you have the ability here to let your eyes close, you feel some sense of balance. You move your arms either out or back to a cactus shape. And receive the influence of breath slowly. And feeling how the diaphragm has to really work against gravity when you inhale. So it's strengthening for the core cylinder. And then as you exhale, you might feel that that freely flows out. You can visualize what might be occurring in the field of the lungs. And simply emphasize a comforting expansion and contraction. Just enjoy that. You're strengthening, you're opening, you feel lengthening. And reversing the flow of gravity to the heart and the brain, the lungs, revitalizing for all the body systems as we invert our body. So we're in a pretty mild inversion here, but it is an inversion because we have our pelvis and legs raised higher than our heart.
and definitely the brain. That would be for certain. Now, as you feel that stillness, that meditative current, you're going to bend through knees and feel when the leg press is occurring, the concentration in your ribs, thus your breathing abilities. So if it impacts your ribs and your breath in a discomforting way, see if you can get away from the pose sooner. If you're feeling like this is quite interesting and you want to tough it out and stay with it and encourage your back to stretch. Just like you have knees to chest. I suppose this is knees to chest. Okay, but something like that. Now, as I reach up to my sand, if I'm using that, I'm going to slide that aside. I'm going to bring it overhead. And then as I move my knees up into center, let your knees go over to the left side. Elevated reclining twist, right arm is open. Feel about 15 to 20 seconds here. Help the knees with your left hand to move back center, and then feel them go freely to the right. Let your arms both center, open the chest, your head centering or turning. Breathing, feeling from all that work that we incorporated into our diaphragm, our ribs, the inverted pattern in our inner environment. So when we push into our right leg with the left hand and help the knees back in, it's almost like you want to keep helping your body to find balance. We bounce it back and forth in and out of these pathways. So when our knees go to our chest, you're going to push the bolster forward. Keep it simple. Feel the bolster with your feet, and hands are centered down. Bring a block, place it between your knees, and push into your feet and lift your hips up. Keep it simple. If the blanket under your head feels like it is too much height, you push it back. Keep in mind you have sand back there, so it might feel like there's a wall behind you, surprisingly. Arms flow back. Lower down spine, try to let the arms catch up with the spine's speed and lower down along with the back. Take a few more drawbridge sets. Feel the alternating movement of your pelvi, arching, and then pushing into your feet, activating the thigh lanes through inner, through outer, through rear, over, head with your arms. Exhale, lengthening down. Feel the palms open. Inhale, lift up the hips. Feel the palms open, facing back behind you. Stay with the energy of the hands open, so as your spine lowers, the palms are open. That might slow down your gesture of arching. Once more, squeeze, manage the movement of your hips. Try to get a high lift in your quads, like you're working on filling up those muscles. Then as you lower down, try to inch down the spinal column and feel the upper back. And then feel your arms move, your hands onto the top of the thighs, and then the hands at the thigh lids. And then you'll press and let the spine meet the earth. Knees to chest, remove the block. Push your cushion or your bolster over to the left side of your mat in the side yard. Okay. Could be basically any height that you have. You can have cushion, blankets that you're going to use to be over to the side. And what I'm gonna do is place my blanket so it's closer under my head, it's a little more comfortable. I'm gonna bring the right leg to cross over to the bolster and then place my sand on the outer right thigh. Sand or rice, this is quite helpful with traction and also changing the way gravity flows through the lateral rotator, through the glutes, so the deep buttock muscles, the hips. If you have a ball, now this one could be a smaller ball as well. You're going to place it near the sacrum, so between the sacrum and the gluteal fold, you want to have that ball. And you'll find where it's satisfying to hold your back so it senses that it's being supported. So there's these two support waves of energy at your back and then at your leg to find the hip circulation. It's kind of a nice dosing for the hip. Feel your head turning right, your arm open. Feel the level of the arm when it's a little lower, out from your shoulder. Breathing, easing, hand wherever it's comfy with the left side. And feeling those spaces in the belly. Maybe talk to you a little bit. Feel where you're arriving in this final portion of the practice, where you kind of have gone full cycle of attention in your body spaces, front space, side, back, inner. Now, if you have a ball at your back, you're going to move that away. Then the sand, slide that to your belly. Let it stay on the belly, bend the knees so they're about hips distance, and then move your bolster to the other side. If you want to feel some completeness in the back, you might hold on to the bolster with the palms spreading open. Feel the fingers wide. Feel a little bit of that wrist stretch, and the bolster goes straight above your chest. Bend your elbows by your sides and try to really flex those wrists. So you're stretching into the wrists, and then move the bolster to your thighs, over to the right, kind of careens and drops. And so do you. Right leg straight-ish, left leg over to the bolster. Now, you might find that the bolster height is too low. This could be where you add a towel or blanket or a block under your knee. You might find one side doesn't comply these same. So I add my sand with the block under or without. Not required by any means. Just an idea if you're not sure. One side needs a little more help. Ball tucks into my base contour, right? That gluteal fold. There's definitely a dip in the back that you could place that at and stretch your left arm open. Yeah, feeling where that sand or the weight could provide you with some much needed traction. And we're trying to really loosen up those fibers that grip up. You're trying to give yourself a little self-massage here. You could use that. So use the sand of the bag of rice as touch. Right? It gives some feeling of the skin, the connective layer, that dermal pressure through the skin cells. Now with a few moments here, span the ribs, counterspin the left arm, resting your right hand on the ribs or the heart or the belly or the thigh. Eyes can close, relax the face. Notice where the inspiration is from the sand, right? Notice where that gives a little bit more pulse in the muscles, in the convincing the separation of spaces that can get a little bit foggy. So as you start to slide the ball away, if you have a ball, the sand, if so, bring the knees in center, and you can push the bolster forward and windshield wiper the knees side to side. Yeah. Feel a wide stance with your feet, as wide as your mat. If you're on a mat, let your feet be as wide as the mat, and feel where the knees swivel. Notice if it's a swivel, if it's a swishing. Feel your breath. If it's channeled very tense, if you can empty the lungs. If lungs could swivel. Okay. Now with the knees hugging in, roll up to sitting. Okay, we're going to place our blocks under a bolster. You have a stack of blankets and a cushion. You can make as much height as you can in front of you. And so at the feet of your mat, you're going to place that height up. You might be able to get your bolster up to the very highest part of your block, so it could be quite high. Depends on how you're feeling, right, in a spinal inversion. So when I move onto my back, I have my legs up on the bolster, my feet float. You want your heels to certainly float off of the bolster so they're not attached to it. And as you lower back, you can either have your blanket in a line under your spine, and so there's a very mild chest opening possibility. Any heart span we can influence would be useful. And I place the sand onto my core cylinder. So when I lower down, I have my sand, so it's elongating from my front to my belly. You can also have the sand across your ribs, and you could also have it on your shins. Okay, be sure your heels are floating off. Foot float, ribs are trying to float, but they are kind of have a little bit of weight, so they sink. They synchronize with opening the heart. Maybe circle your feet. Feel the hands, feel the face, making a few funny faces, squeezing the face up like a raisin, and empty out. Feel the legs relax, let the body just gel and receive. Receiving breath, receiving the wellness that is inspired from these practices. Feel what touches, feel what opens. Quieting the mind, resting the eyes back into the brain. Bring to mind a space that holds energy that you can see. Maybe it's the sky. Maybe it's a landscape. Just let the thoughts move through, just like clouds. They pass across the sky in the mind. And you feel what's right below that sky is the body healing from the practice. in breath, very slow, we fill up. With an out breath, below, let the belly let go. If your feet like to stay dozing, if your feet are interested in each other, you could bring the soles together, keep it so that there's no distance between them. Feel the inner environment, distal, open, spacious, reaching out. Now, as we begin to bring a convergence with our sides, we'll start to bring our feet to feet, so they're next to each other, bottoms of the feet down on your props in front of you. If you have the sand on, you're going to slide that away. And then carefully, you'll bring either your knees to chest if you have a blanket under your head. If there's one through the whole back lining, you're going to carefully crash rolling. And for all of us, we draw knees over and we roll to the side. And we spend a moment in grace, centering into our side. Give yourself a moment of turning and coming up to sitting. And feel where you have that blanket under you or some height underneath your seat, and position where your lift of your ribs as expressive as it was on your back. Like there is the span even when you sit up. And if you're concentrate on making that fuller, see if you can provide focus with your hands open on your lap, on your laptop. Roll your shoulders back. Bring flow into the joints. Now fluid motion of hands open. Feel your head lower down to service of your heart. And connect your hands in unity at the base of the heart. So with this bow, honoring your life force, feeling support from practice, from those that share in your practice. Uniting our breath in and exhaling, bowing into the space behind your heart and all hearts. In gratitude, namaste. Thank you.